Tú quieres aprender un español mexicano. Well, welcome to this video. My name is Nate. I've been living in Mexico for almost 3 years now, and I love teaching Mexican Spanish. So, by the end of today's video, you will know everything you need to know in order to learn how to speak that perfect Mexican Spanish. So the first thing you need to do is get a Mexican boyfriend or girlfriend and then move to Mexico. Nah, I'm just kidding. No es cierto. But that definitely does help. However, here's what I'll say. 95% of all the Spanish that I learned was in the United States. So you do not need to move to Mexico in order to learn a perfect Mexican Spanish. And you don't need to have a Mexican romantic partner in order to become fluent in Spanish. They do help, I won't lie, but it's not required. So the easiest way to get started learning Mexican Spanish is to simply learn Mexican vocab. So slang, words and phrases that we use in Mexico. So learning something like ¿Qué onda? Or no manches, for example. And honestly, this is really easy to do. You can just tell ChatGPT, hey, give me a big list of Mexican Spanish words. You can Google a list of Mexican Spanish words. Also inside our Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy, we have pre-made flashcard decks with Mexican Spanish vocabulary. So you have lots of different options. This is going to be a great way to dip your feet in the water and get used to that more Mexican Spanish. The next thing to do is to make Mexican friends. I remember in high school, I had a bunch of Mexican friends, and when I started learning Spanish, I would say to them, hey, I'm trying to learn Spanish. Would you mind practicing with me? And at the time, I didn't really have the goal of learning a Mexican Spanish, but because I had lots of Mexican friends, without me realizing it, I started to pick up on, phrases like no manches or qué onda or whatever, and the accent that they had. So I had those Mexican friends and they helped me a lot to improve my Mexican Spanish. Now you might be saying, Nate, that's great for you, but I live in rural Montana. I don't have Mexican friends where I live. No worries. What you can do is go online and go on a free language exchange app, something like HelloTalk or Tandem. Be careful, sometimes there are weird people on there, but you go on there and you try to meet Mexican Spanish speakers. You help them with their English, they help you with your Spanish, you make new friends, and everyone is happy. Now, if you don't like those options, you can always literally talk to ChatGPT or a platform like Lengua and just tell it, hey, speak to me with a Mexican Spanish so that I can get better at Mexican Spanish. Or you can pay an online teacher from a platform like italki or Preply, and they're very affordable lessons, and that's another way that you can learn Mexican Spanish. But I highly recommend that you make Mexican friends because for a lot of people, they don't like to take a one-on-one tutoring lessons because of, the time and money commitment. But if you have friends who you can, chat with or text or call whenever you want, that's going to be a big help because you don't have to pay for that. The next thing you're going to need to do if you want to learn Mexican Spanish is to learn the grammar. Now, I know you might be thinking, Nate, come on, man. I saw online that, grammar is pointless or I don't need it. It's not true. Grammar is extremely important. And here's what I'll say to you. At the end of the day, Spanish is still Spanish. What I mean by this is that, okay, in Spain, maybe they use something like vosotros, whereas in Mexico, we wouldn't. We would just use something like ustedes. But at the end of the day, if I go to Spain and I speak a more Mexican Spanish, a Spaniard will still understand me, and I will still understand them when they speak to me. So when it comes to grammar, it's pretty much all the same. Yes, there are some differences, but more or less it's the same, right? So using the present simple or the preterite versus the imperfect or what we call the present perfect. So choose one good grammar resource. The number one mistake I always see students make is they say, hey, Nate, I've got this app and that one and blah, 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 blah. I have 20 million apps. What should I do? And I say, delete all of your apps and only keep one or two. When it comes to grammar, just pick one and keep it simple. So if you like books, for example, grammar books. There are excellent grammar books that you can order off Amazon that are very affordable. Or if you prefer something like an online course or an online community, then go that route. Cough, 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 Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy, link in description. But choose something that you like and that you can do consistently. Next is to focus on speaking. Now, a huge mistake that I see students make is that they think, oh, well, I'm just going to watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts and, do my Spanish grammar, but speaking, I'll do that later. It's not a big deal. But what ends up happening is you make very slow progress, and when you go to have a real conversation in the real world, you freeze up and you don't know what to say. You need to be speaking Spanish from day one. Now, if we're trying to learn Mexican Spanish, then you need to focus on speaking with Mexican Spanish speakers. Like I said, go on a platform like Tandem or HelloTalk. Those are totally free. Pay a teacher on a platform like italki or Preply, or just talk to an AI, talk to ChatGPT, talk to Lengua. But do not make the mistake of avoiding speaking. The people who speak the most are always the people who learn the fastest. I kind of think of this like the friend you had in high school who was on the football team and he had all the fancy gear. He had the best cleats and the best helmet and these fancy gloves to catch the football, but he wasn't really the best player on the team. The best player on the team was showing up all the time and always putting in the reps. That's why I say you don't need 20 million apps. Just keep it simple and show up and do the work. The most important thing you can do in order to improve your Spanish is to speak the language. Next is to listen. Now, I love Mexican music. And in fact, if you go on Spotify, you will see that there is a category just for regional Mexican music because there are all kinds of music coming from Mexico. Now, people will say to me, well, Nate, shouldn't I do the comprehensible input method or, only listen to podcasts or blah, 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 blah. Just listen to what you like, okay? When it comes to comprehensible input, that is simply listening to things that are slightly above your current level. But if you're not really sure what that is, then just start off by listening to things that you enjoy listening to. There is no reason to overcomplicate things. You want to keep it simple because ultimately the people who are successful keep things simple. They keep it simple and they show up every day. So if you love listening to music in English, then just start listening to music in Spanish. Maybe you say, hey, every time I drive, I'm only going to listen to music in Spanish. Or whenever I cook, I'm going to only listen to music in Spanish. Or if you love podcasts, excellent. Go listen to podcasts in Spanish. There's a great podcast called No Hay Tos, focused on Mexican Spanish. And there's also my podcast, Suave Spanish, in which I talk with my friend Luis and also my novia, Yasmin, and we focus on Mexican Spanish. Next, just live the language. So, like I was talking about, you speak and you listen and you should live the language. Now, what do I mean by living the language? I mean doing things that if you were to have been born in Mexico, you would do. So, for example, you wake up, you listen to Spanish. You put the news on in Spanish. When you're cooking, you're thinking, okay, here I've got the huevos and tocino and so on and so forth. Try to embrace the language, live the language, create that artificial immersion. Next is just to have fun. So many people overcomplicate the process, take it way too seriously. They say, I'm going to become fluent in 2 days, and then they get burnt out and they give up and they don't become successful. So have fun, slow down, enjoy the process, and do the things that I said. So learn some Mexican vocabulary, things like no manches or qué onda or cómo estás, güey, things like that. Focus on grammar, one simple grammar resource. Speak the language as much as you can, free or paid, whatever, or with people in the real world. Listen as much as you can, live the language, and finally, just be consistent. You need to show up every single day if you want to become fluent in Spanish. So there you have it. That is how you learn Mexican Spanish. If you feel like I left something out, please leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to learn more Spanish from me, click the link in the video description to check out our Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy. Our goal is to help you have a 10-minute conversation in Spanish in 90 days without feeling unconfident. Check it out by clicking the link in the video description. Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.